Hi guys, so we're going to talk about naming compounds that has a break or side chain attached. So we'll jump right in, and I'm going to do this in two videos too. Alright, so when we're naming side chains, one of the things that you need to remember is that when we do have a break in the parent chain, it's based on two things: the root or the parent chain and anything that comes off of the parent chain, the side chain or the branches, okay? So we have this compound that we're going to name, and I'm going to kind of go through how we do that, and then we're going to actually name it. Now, your root or your parent chain is always going to be your longest possible hydrocarbon. It is going to be the one that contains the most carbons in a row. Okay. Now, whether that's coming this way or it curves around or what have you, it is always going to be the longest possible connection from carbon to carbon. Right? The root name must always include a multiple bond, whether it's a double or a triple bond. It must be included as part of the root if it's present. If it's not, then you don't have to worry about it. But if this, let's say there was a double bond here, then this is where I would have to start and go this way or this way to include the longest chain, okay? If you have a cyclic compound, cyclohexane, cyclopentane, or whatever, you must make that the root parent, even if it's not the longest part, even if it's not the longest chain, all right? You must make the cyclic portion of the compound the root. Now, there are going to be some exceptions, and I'll kind of work with you guys through that, but that's the general rule. And then lastly, if you have a branch, and if you have an alkyl group, then it gets an ending YL. That's how we know that that's an alkyl group, or it's a branch. It's something that's coming off of the parent chain. And so it becomes like methyl, ethyl, and that sort of thing. All right. So however many number of carbons for the branch or the break, and then it has the YL to the ending. All right. So let's take a look at this example here, and we're going to use that concept. All right. So the first thing I have to figure out is what's my longest, or my longest chain, my hydrocarbon. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That seems to be the longest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It can go forwards, backwards. It can curve, like I said. So it doesn't really matter which way I decided to go. I know the longest here would be 5. I do not have a double or a triple bond, so I don't have to worry about my ending being anything other than ane. And because I have 5, the prefix for 5 is pent, so we know we're looking at pentane as my root word, okay, or my root chain. Now I have a couple of things coming off of the root chain. I've got this here and then this here. Now in both cases, it's just one carbon. And one carbon, the prefix for one carbon is meth. But again, because it's an alkyl group, it has the YL ending. So instead of methane, it is methyl right here. Methyl, methyl. All right. Now, the interesting thing here is that I have two methyl groups that are coming off of the parent chain. And because I have two methyl groups, I have to indicate that. All right, so those prefixes that we used in chapter 8, mono, di. We won't use mono, but we'll use di. We can use tri, all the way up. We have to indicate how many. So if we're talking about how many of those functional groups, we have to use di in this case. Di because di means 2. 1, 2. So this is a dimethyl branch that's coming off. Now, the very last part to name this all the way is we have to indicate where the branches are. Just like how I had to indicate or tell you what the chain or the double bonds are by telling you the location, I have to do the same thing with the branches. So when we're numbering, I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The numbering part of it is still the same. You want to make sure your branches have the lowest possible number as well. And so I'm not going to go that way, but 1, 2. So 2, 3, 2, 3 as my location, dimethylpentane is the full name. Now you'll notice that my numbers are separated by commas, 2, 3, and then my number and my name separated by a dash or a hyphen. So 2,3-dimethylpentane is this compound. So it's not as hard as it seems. Okay. All right, let's go through the rules real quick, all kind of together. Hopefully you didn't rewrite this because we've already talked about it, but if you needed to, you can. There's some things that are here that were not on previous slides. So the first thing is when we're naming hydrocarbons, whether they contain a branch or what a functional group or whatever, these are kind of like the general IUPAC names or rules for that you have to figure out what the ending is. Do you have a double bond? Do you have a triple bond? If that's the case, you have to figure out that that's going to end in A-N-E. If you do, then you're "ene" or "I" depending on what you have. All right? You determine the longest carbon chain. You do that by counting those carbons and assigning the carbon a number. All right? When you're doing the assigning the number, keep in mind that you want to make sure that the double bonds or the triple bonds has the smallest possible number in that case. Okay, if it doesn't, you haven't done it correctly. So you always want to incorporate the multiple bonds in that the lowest number possible. You also want to make sure that your branches get the lowest possible number. Any break in the parent chain would have the shortest number. And remember, your parent chain does not have to be straight. It can curve. It can, do different things. And I'm going to show you on the next slide when we go through that. Our next example. If you have carbons in a multiple bond, they must be listed consecutively in order. All right. So let's say you have a double bond here and a triple bond over here. You list them in order. That's basically what that's saying. Okay. You always want to use your prefixes. Your prefixes came from what we have been talking about: meth, eth, prop, all that good stuff. The prefixes refer to the number of carbons that are there, not how many branches. If you have a cyclic compound, then the prefix cyclo must be a part of the name: cyclopentane, cyclohexane, cyclo, whatever it may be. Then you want to indicate or identify any breaks in the parent chain. If you have a branch or side chain, which is an alkyl group, you must tell me what's that alkyl group, and you must tell me where they are too. All right. If you have multiple branches, you must list them alphabetically. That does not mean they must go numerically, because like the example that I have here, 4-ethyl, 2-methyl, E comes before M. That's why we listed it first, even though it may be on the fourth carbon. So you always list it alphabetically, not based on where they are. All right? But you do have to tell me where they are too. Right? You'll also see that if you're doing something like that, the number and the name or the word separated by a hyphen, right? They're not separated by a comma. In this example, if you have a repeat in the location, a duplicate, you must tell me that. That's where that other prefix comes in. How many of the methyl groups or the ethyl groups do you have in this particular carbon in this case? And then you tell me that. And it's located on 2,2. Both of them are on the same carbon. So 2,2-di. That's telling me that there are two of them methyl. Now, if you have 2,2-methylhexane, it's technically wrong. Because if you're telling me that you have a methyl on the second carbon, you have two methyls because you're saying 2,2. There's either no need to put the second 2 or you must include the di. So make certain that you tell me how many if you have multiple. You kind of group them together. Okay, so I'm going to stop the video here and then I'm going to go through the example problem for you. So I'll be back.